this meeting to order. Meeting number 15 of the Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration. Given the ongoing pandemic situation and in light of the recommendations from the health authorities, as well as the directive of the Board of Internal Economy on January 28, 2021, please remain healthy and safe. All those attending the meeting in person, please maintain physical distance of at least 2 meters from others, wear a non-medical mask when moving in the meeting room, and preferably wear a mask at all times, including when seated. Maintain proper hand hygiene by using the provided hand sanitizers at the room entrance, and wash your hands well with soap regularly. As the chair, I will be enforcing these measures for the duration of the meeting, and I thank all the members in advance for their cooperation. So welcome everyone to meeting number 15 of the House of Commons Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration. Just wanted to give you a heads up that for the information of all the members, the Minister of Immigration, Refugees and Citizenship has agreed to appear before the committee on Monday, March 8, regarding the supplementary estimates. And the main estimates, provided we receive them in time. So I understand that the committee wishes to study those estimates. The first item on the agenda today is the election of the vice chair. PROC has changed the committee membership. Ms. Dancho is no longer a member, and Mr. Kyle Seebeck is now the member of the Standing Committee on Citizenship and Immigration. Thank you to Ms. Dancho for her collaborative engagement in this session. And on behalf of all members, I would like to welcome Mr. Seebeck to this committee. As a result of Ms. Dancho's departure from the committee, we do not have a first vice chair. The standing orders require that the first vice chair shall be a member of the official opposition. I would request the clerk to please preside over the election of the vice chair, first vice chair. Over to Mr. Clerk.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
I don't think he needs it.
Pursuant to Standing Order 106-2, the first vice chair must be a member of the official opposition. I'm prepared to receive motions for the position of first vice chair.
Mr. Clerk, I'd like to nominate Jaz Alan, please.
Mr. Allison moves that Mr. Jazrai Halan be first vice chair. Are there any other nominations?
I second that. And let the close the nominations.
Are there any other nominations? Okay. Seeing none, is it the pleasure of the committee to adopt the nomination? It appears unanimous. Mr. Halan is duly elected first vice chair. Madam Chair, back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Clerk. Congratulations, Mr. Halan, for being elected as the first vice chair for the Standing Committee. I see a hand raised. We will have to move on to the resuming of the study on the special immigration and refugee measures for the people of Hong Kong. Ms. Kwan, is it a point of order?
Yes, Madam Chair, before we move on to the study, I'd like to move the motion that I've tabled and it's been put on notice. And the motion is that regarding the study of special immigration and refugee measures for the people of Hong Kong, the committee allocate 1 additional hour to the study to invite representatives.
Point of order, the interpreter does not have the motion. The interpreter has not received the motion being read by Ms. Kwan.
Point of order, you cannot move a motion at a point of order.
Sorry, it's not a point of order. I'm just going to move a motion. I'm allowed to move a motion on the proviso that my notice has been given properly. And so I'm moving the motion. And I have my hand up prior to you moving forward, your intention of moving forward with the committee. This should not take very long in terms of the motion. The motion has been tabled to the clerk. It's been translated, and I believe the document has been sent to everyone.
Thank you, Ms. Kwan. Just
Mon point d'ordre, Madame la Présidente, était que moi, je
My point of order is the following. Yes, Mr. Brunel Duceppe. Yes, Madam Chair, I have a point of order. I agree with Ms. Kwan. She can table a motion. She has tabled a motion, but the interpreter is telling me that the interpreter has not received the motion, the translation of the motion. So she was unable to translate the motion.
just 1 second. Let me find out from the clerk. Mr. Clerk,
Yes, Madam Chair.
yeah, if you can please clarify in regards to Ms. Kwan moving the motion and Mr. Brunel Decep's point of order that there is no translated version of the motion available.
I will send an electronic copy to the office and to the P9 of Mr. Brunel Duceppe now, in case that he has not yet received Ms. Kwan's notice of motion.
OK, donc, oui, non, mais il n'y a pas de problème.
Yes, of course. That's no problem at all. You can send it through to me through the P9, but the interpreter has not received the motion. We have an Official Languages Act, and our interpreters must be able to translate the debates that are happening.
Mr. Brunel Desapp. Yes, clerk, you were saying something.
Members may move a motion if they have the floor in debate. Our rules prescribe that members may not move motions on a point of order.
Ms. Kwan, you have a hand raised.
Thank you. So if I may proceed, Madam Chair. So the motion I'd like to move that has been given proper notice is that regarding the study of special immigration and refugee measures for the people of Hong Kong, the committee allocate 1 additional hour to the study to invite representatives of VFS Global to testify for 1 hour, and that this meeting take place not later than February 24th, 2021. And I'll just
do I have the unanimous consent of the members for allowing Ms. Kwan to move the motion? Seeing no objections, yes, Ms. Kwan.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. I'll just speak very briefly about the motion. The intention is to bring forward VFS Global to the committee so that we can actually provide questions and put questions to VFS Global. As we know that through the media, and particularly the Globe and Mail has done some extensive reporting on this, that the Canadian government has contracted out the visa office work to VFS Global. We also learned through the Globe and Mail that the subcontract of VFS Global in China is a company that is owned by the Beijing police. This ought to be cause for concern for all committee members, and most notably for the people who might be trying to access immigration measures through the VACs overseas. Given the sensitive nature of the situation, particularly for the people who may be seeking to get to safety here in Canada, in Hong Kong, with the implication of the Chinese government's national security law, the information to which the VACs receive is particularly sensitive. And so I think it is very important that we undertake to have VFS Global come before the committee to testify so that we may put questions to them and to ensure that this issue is addressed through this study. So Madam Chair, I hope committee members will support this motion and as part of the study for the Hong Kong study.
Madam Martinez-Farada.
Oui, merci, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just quickly, we agree with the motion being tabled by Ms. Kwan, so I would ask for a vote on the motion so we can move forward and carry out the study. We already have the witnesses here with us, so I would call for the vote.
If I could get a recorded vote, please, Madam Chair.
Seeing no further hands up, can I please request Mr. Clerk to conduct the vote?
Yes, the question is on the motion by Ms. Kwan. Mr. Dollywall.
Mr. Dhaliwal, you are on mute. Can you please
Yes.
unmute yourself?
Yes, please. Yes.
Ms. Dillon.
I vote yes.
Madame Martinez-Ferrada.
Oui, en faveur.
Point d'ordre, Madame la Présidente, excusez-moi.
Point of order, Madam Chair. Everything happened very quickly. I just want to make sure that the motion be not.
Clerk is conducting a vote right now. Any clarification you need?
Oui, j'aimerais m'assurer.
Yes, I would like to make sure that the motion be non-binding. And in that case, I would be able to support it.
Mr. Clerk, can you please clarify about Mr. Brunel's interruption about non-binding motion? There are no conditions attached to this motion.
La motion a été
The motion was distributed. I am not sure I understand the question that is being asked. Well, if the witness cannot come, I want to make sure we will not add an hour of study. So that's what I mean by non-binding. The witness that Ms. Kwan wants to hear must be there for us to be able to add an hour. Can we agree on that?
Yeah, we are voting on a motion as presented by Ms. Kwan. So that the motion as presented by Ms. Kwan is being voted on. So that is the motion which we are voting, and that's if it is voted today in favor, we will be adding 1 hour with that witness. I can repeat Ms. Kwan's motion if there is some clarification you need. That regarding the study of special immigration and refugee measures for the people of Hong Kong, the committee allocate 1 additional hour to the study to invite representatives of VFS Global to testify for 1 hour, and that this meeting take place not later than February 24, 2021. So I will request Mr. Clerk to please continue with the vote.
Yes. Madame Martinez-Ferrada.
Je vote en faveur.
Mr. Regan.
In favor. Oops. In favor, sorry.
Monsieur Serret.
En faveur.
Mr. Allison.
I support the motion.
Mr. Halan.
I vote in favor.
Is Mr. Genuis with us?
Yes, in favor.
Mr. Seaback.
In favor.
Monsieur Brunel-Duceppe.
Oh.
Ms. Kwan.
Yes.
All members are in favor? No nays.
Thank you. The motion is adopted. We will now move on to pursuant to the Standing Order 1082, the committee is resuming the study of immigration and refugee measures for the people of Hong Kong. Today's meeting is taking place in virtual or hybrid format pursuant to the House Order of January 25, 2021. The proceedings will be made available via the House of Commons website. A reminder, the webcast will always display the person speaking rather than the entirety of the committee. I would like to take this opportunity to remind all meeting participants that screenshots or taking photos of your screen is not permitted. For those participating virtually, I would like to outline a few rules to follow. Members and witnesses may speak in the official language of their choice. Interpretation services are available for this meeting. You have the choice at the bottom of your screen of either floor English or French. With the latest Zoom version, you may now speak in the language of your choice without the need to select the corresponding language channel. You will also notice that the platform's raise hand feature is now in a more visible access location on the main toolbar should you wish to speak or alert the chair. For members participating in person, proceed as you usually would when the whole committee is meeting in person or in a committee room. Before speaking, please wait until you are recognized by the chair. If you are on the video conference, please click on the microphone icon to unmute yourself. Those in the room, your microphone will be controlled as normal by the proceedings and verification officer. A reminder that all comments by members and witnesses should be addressed to the chair. When you are not speaking, your microphone should be on the mute. With regards to a speaking list, the committee clerk and I will do the best we can to maintain consolidated order of speaking for all members, whether they are participating virtually or in person. With this, I would like to welcome our witnesses for our first panel. We have Mr. Mabel Tang, Chair of Vancouver Society in Support of Democratic Movement. We are also joined by Joy Siu, Associate for Hong Kong Watch, and we have Mr. Nathan Law as an individual from Hong Kong activist, former legislator. So with this, I welcome all our witnesses to this panel, and we will start with Mr. Tang. Mr. Tang, you have 5 minutes. We will start with Madame Tang, Chair of Vancouver Society in Support of Democratic Movement. Madam Tang, you have 5 minutes for your opening remarks. Thank you. Floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. I thank you for the opportunity to speak with you today. The Vancouver Society in Support of Democratic Movement, VSSDM, was founded in June 1989 after the June 4th Tiananmen Square massacre. The organization works to advocate and advance democracy, freedom, and human rights. We also offer support to those who left China for Canada to flee political persecution so that they could become contributing members of the Canadian society. Ever since Hong Kong was handed over to China in 1997, its people have strived to protect their ways of life and the system of government. In July 2020, China imposed a sweeping national security law, stripping the city of any...
Point d'ordre, Madame la Présidente. Je suis vraiment désolé d'interrompre le témoin. Il n'y a pas de traduction.
I'm sorry to interrupt the witness. There was no translation, no interpretation.
Okay. Should I continue?
Maintenant, il y en a. On peut continuer.
Now there is some you can go on. Thank you, Madame Tong. It's working now.
Okay. So in 2021, the mass arrest has I don't know where I stopped, but anyway, ever since the Hong Kong has handed over to China in 1997, its people have strived to protect the way of life and the system of government. In July 2020, China imposed a sweeping national security law, stripping the city of any remnant of autonomy, civil and social freedom. Tens of thousands turned out to protest this new legislation. Thousands were arrested and hundreds were imprisoned. In 2021, the mass arrests have intensified. Pro-democracy legislators, democracy activists, a medium tycoon, and a human rights lawyer are on the list. Some are held during denied bail. Many Hong Kongers who participated in the movement fear they will face the same fate as the student protester in Tiananmen Square 32 years ago. They look to Western democracy to protection and safe harboring. Already, 46 Hong Kong citizens are seeking asylum in Canada. We urge the government of Canada to lend your support to Hong Kongers seeking political asylum. We welcome the new open work permit for Hong Kong residents announced by Minister Mendicino. It's a major step when it comes to helping young activists become integrated into Canadian society. To make the new policy more accessible to the activists under imminent persecution, we submit the following recommendation. First, appoint a designated commissioner within the Canadian consulate in Hong Kong to handle, with utmost confidentiality, cases from political asylum seekers, including vetting, background checking, evidence gathering to establish the validity of their claims. This commissioner can enlist the help of prominent Canadian civil rights organizations such as Visa STEM, which have direct connection with the Hong Kong civil society. In urgent situation, we recommend providing temporary residence permits with with special quotas to activists who need to leave Hong Kong and complete the application process within Canada. Second, broaden family reunification, including for siblings and extended family. This will be another way for more young activists to flee Hong Kong. Again, in urgent situation, we also recommend providing temporary residence permits to activists who need to leave Hong Kong and complete their application within Canada. Third, provide grants or loans to asylum seekers. Instead of applying for refugee status, asylum seekers would receive a loan to further their studies, and they would pay back the loan in the same way that one pays back student loan. This way, the federal government would not be required to pay any financial assistance, thereby saving taxpayers' money. Furthermore, this would save the activists from having to live through a year of uncertainty. Number 4, support former Canadian citizens who return to Hong Kong and ran for public office in the pan-democracy camp. These Canadians will be required to give up their Canadian citizenship. These legislators have subsequently been either disqualified to run or stripped of their seat under the national security law. We ask that the Canadian government grant them pathways to regain their Canadian citizenship, such as giving them permanent resident status to work towards citizenship. Number 5, extend the visas of Hong Kongers currently residing in Canada under the temporary work permit, who participate in the protest action in various Canadian cities since 2019. They face an uncertain future. They fear return to Hong Kong only to be arrested or barred from leaving the city, or remaining in Canada without proper status. We recommend for application, allowing them for application to extend the existing visa to a 5 years visa and an expedited pathway towards obtaining permanent residence status. Hong Kong
Sorry for interrupting, Madam Tang. Your
Okay.
time is up.
Okay.
We will now move on to Madam Su. Madam Su, you have 5 minutes for your opening remarks. Floor is yours. You can please start.
Good evening, Madam Chair and members of the committee. Thank you for arranging this hearing and for inviting me to testify. So Hong Kong's pro-democracy movement kicked off in June 2019, and the world has witnessed how the Chinese Communist regime has been continuing their cruel crackdown on the city's long-cherished freedom and rights. And in November 2019, I came to Ottawa after the tragic sieges of universities and landslide victory in the district council election for a cross-party discussion chaired by Ghana Januous MP to give a briefing on Hong Kong's situation. And the remarkable election results did give the people of Hong Kong a glimpse of hope, but unfortunately, the situation deteriorated very rapidly after that. The imposition of the National Security Law in July 2020, cancellation of our Legislative Council election, disqualifications of democratic lawmakers, suppressions on freedom of expression, and also attacks on judiciary independence all amounts to the picture of Beijing's very brutal dismantling of Hong Kong's core values in grave breach of promises made in the Sino-British Joint Declaration. And the national security legislation criminalizes...
Point d'ordre, Madame la Présidente. Je m'excuse de couper.
Point of order, Madam Chair. I'm sorry to interrupt the witness. It's my turn to ask the witness to speak a little less fast because the interpreter has a hard time following. If she can speak a little and less fast and adjust her microphone because we don't hear well.
Yeah, so I'll continue. Thank you. And imposed in July 2020, the national security legislation criminalizes even the most trivial forms of protest and also any kinds of disobedience to the Chinese Communist regime. And it is not only me or Nathan or any other Hong Kong activists that are becoming subjects of the national security law, but also for any Canadians in Hong Kong or here in Canada who have ever expressed support for the pro-democracy struggle in Hong Kong. And since the implementation of this national security legislation, more than 100 Hong Kongers have been arrested under, and most recently that are the 55 prominent political figures, including activists, lawyers, and academics from all political spectrums, arrested under the fake charges of subversion of state, simply because of their participation in the democratic primaries. And all these arrestees are not only facing a very serious sentencing, but also the possibility of extradition back to mainland China. And also the chief executive of Hong Kong is empowered to designate judges that will be handling national security cases. And also the Hong Kong's National Security Department itself can request for the Chinese government's exercise of jurisdiction over cases that are considered to be complex or serious. As Hong Kong's judges rightfully dismiss the most ridiculous charges against protesters, the government will more frequently exercise these options to avoid them. My organization, Hong Kong Watch, has been working very closely with partners across the globe, including from the UK, US, EU, and also Australia, to call for a global lifeboat scheme. Since our founding in 2017, we have championed the rights of BNOs overseas. And in July 2020, the UK announced its new policy to provide a pathway to citizenship for BNO passport holders, which came into effect last month. And up to 750,000 BNO holders from Hong Kong are expected to take up the scheme. We applaud the Canadian government's decision of joining the two countries in November last year to provide a safe haven for Hong Kongers, offering Hong Kongers the opportunity to relocate. Given the complicated situation Canada is in with the two citizens being held hostage by Beijing, we recognize and praise the courage it took for Canada to live up to its historical relationship to Hong Kong. However, a lot of people will still fall through the gaps in these policies. The Young Talent Scheme, which partly came into effect on February 8th and expires in February 2023, required top qualifications and a level of funding, and that excludes some of the most politically exposed protesters. The sunset nature of the open work visa policy leaves young protesters who are graduating after 2023 behind. And also the very complicated asylum procedures are preventing protesters without adequate legal support to apply, while family reunification only covers a very small number of Hong Kongers with close Canadian family members. And as Hong Kong's situation continues to worsen, it is crucial for Canada to continue to work alongside like-minded partners and take prompt actions to improve the existing schemes. And below are a few recommendations that we believe could create a roadmap for improving the policy. First of all, it was guaranteed that protesters arrested or charged under the national security law will not be deprived the opportunity of filing asylum applications. However, among the 10,000 protesters arrested in 2019, most of them were charged under the public order ordinance about rioting or participating in unlawful assembly. And we encourage the Canadian government to also promise that these arrestees and these Hong Kong protesters will also be guaranteed an opportunity to file
Sorry for interrupting, Ms. Sue. Your time is up. We will have to now move on to the next speaker. You will have an opportunity to talk about in the round of questioning. We will now have Mr. Nathan Law. Mr. Law, you have 5 minutes for your opening remarks.
Madam Chair and other members of the committee, bonjour. I'm Nathan Law, a Hong Kong activist who is forced into exile under Beijing's tightening control. Thank you for having me today to give my testimony on the ongoing deterioration in Hong Kong. As a young activist, I was a student leader of the Umbrella Movement in 2014, democratically elected as the youngest legislative member before being unseated under Beijing's intervention. Later, for my participation in peaceful protests, I was thrown into jail. For now, due to the threat of the national security law, I left the city and the police force put my name on the wanted list under the law. While 2021 might be a better year for many of us, it is not the case for the people living in this city under Beijing's tightening control. Under the draconian national security law, the rule of law and liberty decay. 55 democratic figures were charged with secession just because they took part in a primary election to exercise their constitutional rights. Beijing loyalists also are calling for surveillance cameras to monitor speeches at classrooms. Recently, the Hong Kong government just rolled out real name registration for mobile phones because they want to monitor every call. These strategies suggest that Hong Kong is turning into an ordinary mainland city. Hong Kong needs the help from around the world. Values of freedom and democracy are being demolished. Freedom-loving people in Hong Kong are facing white terror on a daily basis. Whoever gives testimony at hearings, tweets about worsening situation in Hong Kong, or express their critical views on Beijing in interviews can face charges under the security law. Their bank accounts can be frozen and their family members are intimidated or even interrogated. To protect my families, I had to publicly sever my ties with my parents and relatives who are still in Hong Kong. Since there are cases that Hong Kong activists were brutally beaten by CCP affiliated agents, I have to live in solitude and avoid public appearance during my exile. Not to mention that many other asylum seekers lack financial and social support. All these show that we are living in an era when the authoritarian power can stretch beyond its border. At times of political turmoil, Hong Kongers owe our gratitude to Canada's recent Safe Boat scheme, which opens new pathways to residency for Hong Kong people who have certain qualifications. This is an indication that the free world can work together to stand up against tyranny and fall of these once autonomous city. We all need to do more before it's too late, before authoritarianism wins over democracy. At the same time, when Beijing criminalized rallies and punished dissents, the existing arrangement might bring disadvantage to those who, with politically indicted charges. Echoing to what Ms. Shield just commented, even though Canada promises asylum claims will not be affected by national security law charges, the majority of protesters, over 10,000 of them, were arrested under non-national security law charges. The current policy may block their pathway to freedom to demonstrate support to those under political suppression. Canada should state very clearly that protest-related criminal records will be examined. Besides, to deliver a more targeted measures that serve Hong Kong people's interests, Canada could work with human rights groups to enhance security checks and screen out applicants having ties with Chinese Communist Party and the Hong Kong police force. It becomes even more urgent when China's Operation for Hunts is reportedly targeting Canada's Chinese community. We should take measures to ensure that Canada is a safe haven in real terms. At a time when democracies worldwide dim, Canada can take the lead to rebuild democracy. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Law. We will now start our round of questioning. We will end this first.
Nous allons passer au premier tour de questions.
Can everyone hear me? We will end this panel at 6:45 and then have the second panel from 6:45 till 7:30. So based on the time, we will have our first round of questioning for this panel, and each member will have 4 minutes for their round of questioning. So we will start with Mr. Helen. Mr. Helen, you have 4 minutes for your round of questioning.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to all the witnesses for your courage to share your testimony. I'll just get right into it. Mr. Law, given the recent reports in Canada about the visa application centers that are now being operated in Beijing by a company that's owned by the Chinese police, it's the same police that you talked about that literally threw you into jail. And given the circumstances of all of that, these are the same people that are going to be making decisions. Now, given your history and what you've been through, what does that mean to you and other people like yourself?
Well, thank you for the questions. I think it's extremely worrying that the information of the visa applicants or even people who are in contact with the government concerning political suppression will be on the hands of Beijing. And we all understand that when Beijing wants information from its company, from the company registered in China, they could get it. There is no concept of private information for these companies because in a one-party dictatorship, Chinese Communist Party could get whatever they want, and they have a lot of tools to get the information they want, including like blackmailing or just colluding with us, or colluding with them, or just providing financial incentive. So I guess this is a very worrying situation, and the Canadian government should take prompt measures to ensure that people who are facing political suppressions, their information will not be fallen into the hands of the Chinese Communist Party and to result into secondary harms to them.
Thank you so much, Mr. Law. Ms. Su, I understand that you personally were, you went through this same police brutality. You've seen this violence firsthand. What I wanted to get a little bit of background of information from you was what sorts of people were with you when you were protesting at the time? Like what kinds of backgrounds, or what was the reasoning why the other people were doing it with you?
Thank you, sir, for the question. So when I was in Hong Kong participating in the protests and also assemblies, there are people from all sorts of background protesting together with me. For example, we have students from universities, from secondary schools, or even very young kids from primary schools. We also have elderlies who are coming to the streets with their grandchildren. We also have a lot of different people from different professional backgrounds, from different industries in Hong Kong. So we can see that the pro-democracy struggle in Hong Kong is actually a product by all the Hong Kong people from different backgrounds, of different races, and also from different industries.
Thank you. Now, given that information, if this company that's run by the Chinese police, back when you were trying to leave, was running the visa application centers at that time, do you feel that would be that was something that would have been really bad for you at the time? Is that something that would have stopped them from letting you leave?
I think that is definitely one of the ways that the Chinese government tries to collect the data and also the information regarding which of the protesters or activists are trying to leave Hong Kong or to escape from the tyranny in mainland China. And also it does hinder people from applying for a visa to come to Canada, because when we know that the visa centers are actually contracted to Chinese companies that are very closely related to the Chinese companies, I believe that a lot of activists or protesters or even random everyday citizens in China would be afraid to apply, because that would mean that their information would be collected by the Chinese Communist Party, and that also means that the Chinese Communist Party would be aware that they are planning to leave the country, and that is a very dangerous
Sorry
thing.
for interrupting, Ms. Seo. Your time is up. We will now move on to Mr. Reagan. Mr. Reagan, you have 4 minutes for your round of questioning.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair, and I too want to thank the witnesses for appearing and for your courage. My first two questions are for, or my first question or double question are for Ms. Tung and Ms. Su, and I think they may allow you to finish your opening comments, as a matter of fact. And in relation to the program parameters, the programs that the government has created, are there aspects of the measures introduced by the government that you believe should be expanded? What criteria have helped, and what do you think can be defined in a more open way? And I'll start with Ms. Tung and then go to Ms. Su, please. Ms.
Tung, you are on mute. Ms. Tung, you are on mute. If you can please unmute yourself.
Thank you for the question. I think the open permit is pretty good for a lot of students, but I think we still have to consider most of the students, they haven't finished the university. So that I think we should also allow the student with 60 university credit to apply for the open work permit. Right now, the current or open work permit scheme allows graduates to recognize the 2 years diploma program within the last 5 years to apply. But however, a lot of those 4 years university program, we have to complete their 4 years program to apply. So many current protesters and protesters enrolled in university students who participate in the recent protesters and demonstration are subject to police brutality. Many of them are pending trials. So I think we recommended that allowing current university students who have completed a minimum of 60 credits, that means equal to 2 years of study, to apply the open permit, open work permit. Secondly, I think it should be the work permit to eligible for 2 to 10 years after graduation instead of just 5 years. The reason why is the fight to preserve freedom and democracy in Hong Kong began in 2014 when hundreds of the thousand marched on the street, and those protesters right now, they have finished the university for over 5 years now. So in order to protect them, to come to Canada, I think we should extend it to eligible for 10 years instead of just 5 years. And also second reason why is right now they may be have a lot of work experience and also are not self sufficient and can contribute to the Canadian society as well. So that's why we can recommend the eligibility to 10 years. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Su.
Yeah, thank you, sir, for the question. Thank you, Ms. Tong, for her recommendations. And on top of that, we have also made a recommendation on encouraging the Canadian government to extend the current youth working holiday visa from 1 year to 2 years, and also to expand the age group from 18 to 30 years old to 18 to 35 years old, and bringing this into line with Australia's working holiday scheme that would be ensuring Hong Kongers, even without a post-secondary education qualification, would also be given the opportunity to apply for eventually permanent resident status in Canada, and that would be very, very, very helpful. And as I have just mentioned, that the protesters in Hong Kong are actually from all sorts of backgrounds, and especially there are a lot of very, very young protesters who are still in secondary school and are without a post-secondary education. So it would definitely be very helpful for us to expand the open work permit, or also to expand the coverage of the Young Talent Scheme to also take care of these very young protesters from Hong Kong.
Thank you very much. I'll turn to Mr. Law now. Do you believe that residents of Hong Kong have access to the Canadian asylum system, and how do you think the government can expand access to
Sorry,
asylum?
Mr. Reagan, your time is up.
Thank you.
We will now move on to Mr. Brunel Desap. Mr. Brunel Desap, you have 4 minutes for your round of questioning.
Merci, Madame la Présidente. Merci.
Thank you very much, Chair. And thank you so much to our witnesses. You've been very brave. And Ms. Hsu, you talked to us about the courage of Canada to help Hong Kong in spite of the situation with the two hostages in prison in China, and now there are calls for a boycott of the Beijing Olympics, and given the situation with the Uyghur population, what would be the effect of these calls on the situation in Hong Kong? First, Ms. Hsu and the others.
Question. I think it is very important for us to recognize and also to acknowledge what the Chinese Communist Party has been committing in the region of East Turkestan, or commonly known as the Xinjiang, because what they have been doing has been recognized by the U.S. government as an ethnic genocide. And I think it is also the time for Canada and also the other like-minded partners to also acknowledge the fact and also to make that official recognition. And it is also important for us to boycott the things that a genocidal country has been doing, for example, the Winter Olympics in 2022. And I would say that would definitely be one of the most significant things that we can do to boycott Beijing, and also to give a very strong signal to Beijing that it cannot continue with its behavior, and also to continue with disrespecting the international rule-based order.
Thank you very much. Ms. Tang, would you like to say something?
Ms. Tang, you are on mute.
Yes. I think we still have to really to make sure we have to act really fast, because right now I think a lot of things going on in Hong Kong right now. And every day there's a new arrest. And the young people in Hong Kong is certainly facing a lot of uncertainty. So they really really need to leave Hong Kong as soon as possible. So I really urge our members of the committee to consider all the recommendations from us.
Peut-être, Monsieur.
Mr. Law, with regard to the movement and this boycott of the Beijing Olympics, what effect might that have on the situation in Hong Kong? That's what I'm interested in.
The questions. I think it's important that we show strong opposition to the genocidal acts that Beijing has been committing. And boycotting Winter Olympics 2022 is a very important gesture. But I think at first we really need to consult with athletes and really find a solution to balance it. We could ask for a relocation of the host of the Winter Olympic, and then to see whether we could proceed from that point. I believe that the opinion from the athletes are also very valuable for us to make a decision on this. But in general, I think we need to make a very strong stance on this issue.
10 seconds.
Thank you so much for being there and for sharing your experiences with us.
Before we go to Ms. Kwan, can I please request Ms. Tang to, when you are speaking, to please bring the microphone a bit closer to your mouth. We're having some interpretation issues. So thank you. Now we will go on to Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan, you have 4 minutes for your round of questioning.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. And thank you to all the witnesses for your presentation. Just wanted to build on the issue around VFS Global. Given what we now know, that the subcontractor is basically owned by the Beijing police with VFS Global, what do you think the government should do? Should the government actually cancel that contract now and bring all of that service back in-house? What are the risks that would pose for the people who might be wanting to make an application? Ms. Su and then Mr. Law.
Thank you, Ms. Kwan, for the question. I think the most apparent risk of subcontracting the visa application center contract to a Beijing police office owned company would be that all the personal information of not only the Chinese citizens, but then also the other citizens who are trying to apply for a visa to come to Canada, is that their personal information will obviously be obtained by the Chinese Communist Party. And also that will also hinder the people from applying for a visa to come to Canada, because when they are aware that when they make the application, all their personal information would be obtained, they also know that the Chinese Communist Party would be aware of their possible mobility, and that would hinder people from coming to Canada to seek asylum or for other purposes. And I think the most reasonable way to tackle the problem would be suspending the contracts with any kinds of state-owned enterprises by the Chinese Communist Party, and that would be the best way to do it.
Very quickly, Mr. Law.
Well, I'm fully on board with abolishing the contract, because that's very important. We understand the nature of the Chinese Communist Party. They will abuse every source of information and every power that they have to have access to this information, because that means that they could specifically target those people who wanted to leave Hong Kong because of political reasons. So I think it's a necessary step that we have a very high scrutiny on the cooperation or with any cooperation with any China firms or any state-owned companies.
Thank you. Just on that issue, for the people who are trying to get to safety, you touch on some of the measures that needs to be brought in place still. On the issue around asylum, basically, we don't really have an asylum measure, because people cannot, unless if they're in Canada, they cannot apply for asylum. And so what do you think the Canadian government should do in terms of bringing asylum measures for people that are still in Hong Kong at this moment? Mr. Law, Ms. Su, and then Ms. Tang.
Thank you for the question. So I'm an asylum seeker. I'm seeking asylum in London. I understand how well lost that you will be in the system. And I think it's important for now for us that we provide certain gateways for people in Hong Kong, that they could apply or at least have a preliminary assessment of the asylum seeking procedure in Canada, in Hong Kong. And that really relates to whether that information would be would be consumed by the Chinese authority. So I think that's something that we can do first, and then try to make the asylum seeking procedure more convenient to the people on the ground.
Ms. Su?
It is very important for the Canadian government to consider adopting new initiatives that will allow Hong Kongers to file asylum applications outside of Hong Kong and outside of Canada at the local embassies in a third country. So, for example, for the US, there are a para program provided for Cuban medical professionals, which would allow them to file asylum applications in a third country outside of US and also outside of Cuba. And I think similar measures has been adopted in the Rainbow Refugee Assistance pilot scheme in Canada, and I think that should also be considered to be implemented.
Sorry for interrupting, Ms. Su. Your time is up. With this, our first panel comes to an end. On behalf of all members, I would like to take this opportunity to thank all our witnesses for appearing before the committee today and providing your important input. With this, I will suspend the meeting for a minute so that we can allow the witnesses for our second panel to please log in. So thank you once again, and we will suspend the meeting for a minute. To order. I would like to welcome our witnesses for this panel. In this panel, we are joined by Mr. Alex Neve, Senior Fellow, Graduate School of Public and International Affairs, University of Ottawa. We also are joined by Mr. Charles Burton, Senior Fellow, Center for Advancing Canada's Interests Abroad, Macdonald Laurier Institute. We have another witness, Mr. Ted Hui Shi Fang. I think, okay, so I see here Mr. Shai Fung with us. Welcome. All the witnesses will have 5 minutes for their opening remarks. So we will start with Mr. Neve, Mr. Neve, you have 5 minutes for your opening remarks. You can please start.
Thank you so very much, Madam Chair, and good evening to all the committee members. Good afternoon to Ms. Kwan or any other colleagues out west. At the heart of today's hearing, of course, is the unrelenting deterioration in the human rights situation in Hong Kong, culminating with the imposition of the new security law last year. And that law has been used widely to target students, political opponents, critics, journalists, and of greatest concern, to curtail fundamental rights to freedom of expression, freedom of assembly, and peaceful protest. A growing number of individuals have been arrested, and in the face of remarkable courage and resilience on the part of Hong Kongers, this situation nonetheless continues to worsen. As with any human rights crisis, pressing refugee concerns have arisen. There are unique aspects to this refugee situation that merit specific and innovative responses. First, of course, is the simple geographic reality. In almost all other refugee situations around the world, people have the possibility of making it to the closest land border, even if the journey may be dangerous, crossing that border, and accessing international protection through the UNHCR and other agencies. That's obviously not an option here. And second are the strong Canadian connections. There are likely well over 300,000 Canadian citizens in Hong Kong, many with dual nationality, whose situation is very vulnerable, with increasing reports of officials refusing to recognize their Canadian citizenship, as well as recent concerns about a proposal to give immigration officials, quote, unfettered power to stop anyone leaving Hong Kong. Many of those Canadians have close family who are not Canadian citizens, but who cannot be left behind. This means protecting Canadian citizens and also permanent residents facing threats, challenges, and restrictions akin to refugees. That's a very unique situation. It was encouraging to see the special immigration measures announced in November. More is urgently needed, however, and I'd like to quickly make 5 general recommendations. First, the special measures should be strengthened. You've heard thoughtful testimony from advocates such as A.V. Go, Cherry Wong, and Gloria Fung, who've highlighted ways in which the new open work permit privileges wealth and high levels of education, but may not be accessible for others, including young activists at greatest risk. The criteria should be revised to be more responsive to those facing the greatest need. Second, possibilities for family sponsorship need to be expanded. While the option of parents and grandparents of Canadian citizens applying for super visas is rightly being promoted, close family who are at risk is broader than that, including brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, cousins, nieces, nephews. Canadians who may need to escape Hong Kong should not be forced to leave close family members behind. Third, while it is not legally possible to formally provide refugee status to Hong Kongers still present in Hong Kong, refugee and refugee-like measures are nonetheless needed, rather than relying primarily on immigration avenues. Some Hong Kongers have been able to flee to other countries, including Taiwan. Beyond noting that refugee resettlement may be an option for such individuals, Canada should devote more resources to actively facilitate resettlement on an expedited basis. And for individuals trapped in Hong Kong who need a quick means of escape, Canada should make greater use of humanitarian avenues for granting status through temporary residence permits and travel documents if necessary. In other words, refugee protection in all but name. Fourth, there's an urgent need for strategies for facilitating travel in the face of repressive security measures in Hong Kong and the constraints of COVID-19 travel restrictions. Staying abreast of security barriers that impede departure from Hong Kong requires close collaboration with other governments. And I would certainly echo the concerns about possible security problems associated with visa applications being processed by VFS Global. The Prime Minister has asked Ministers Mendicino and Anand to look into this. It would be advisable to ask the Privacy Commissioner to get involved and review this urgently as well. And fifth, let me highlight 2 bigger picture and longer term points. The first is that this situation highlights the limitations of protecting individuals at risk in their countries who cannot cross a border to apply for refugee resettlement. Canada has had previous programs that offered urgent protection to people unable to cross that international border. Most recently, the Source Country program, which was repealed in 2011. The government should look at restoring options for people in those situations. And finally, let me reiterate the obvious. The best solution to addressing the grave...
Sorry for interrupting, Mr. Nave. Your time is up.
Thank you.
We will now move on to Mr. Burton. Mr. Burton, you have 5 minutes for your opening remarks. You can please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I've read the evidence given by the highly articulate and insightful witnesses at the first part of this meeting and at the previous two meetings, and I've read the three briefs that were given to the committee by Alliance Canada-Hong Kong Link, and the Very Reverend Richard Su. It's pretty clear that the government's current proposal to address the immigration and refugee implications for Canada of the current crisis in Hong Kong are too restrictive to meet the challenge of the rapidly deteriorating situation in Hong Kong. This is a matter of considerable urgency. There's strong indications that the Hong Kong government is on the way to restricting exit from Hong Kong. There's also the ongoing issue of the Hong Kong authorities seizing the passports of persons in Hong Kong, many of whom should be allowed to seek refuge in Canada with their families. And our subcontracting of immigration application processing to outside agencies with murky links to the PRC regime is very, very troubling. Moreover, our lack of flexibility in processing applications from Hong Kong persons at risk who are still in Hong Kong and for those who have been able to flee to Canada and other jurisdictions is troubling. Certainly, there are very strong humanitarian compassionate reasons why the Government of Canada should adopt exceptional measures to facilitate persons in Hong Kong who are at risk of severe sanctions under the draconian national security law and the other provisions getting to safety in our country. Now, I understand that the function of this committee is to determine what policy approach in response to the ongoing crisis in Hong Kong best serves Canada's national interest. And of course, we have to look at this in terms of the larger picture of Canada-China relations. For example, if we take strong and meaningful action in response to PRC suppression of the rights of citizens of Hong Kong, and harsh detention of those who dare to speak out for democracy and the independent rule of law there, will it impact on Michael Kovrig and Michael's favor? Or will it lead to economic retaliation by the PRC regime against Canada that will damage our economic interests? I judge, though, that the kind of half measures that the government is currently proposing, supplemented by simple lip service to Canada's commitment to democracy and freedom in Hong Kong, signals to the government of China that its policies of hostage diplomacy and threats of economic coercion through arbitrary imposition of non-tariff barriers to Canadian trade and investment are in fact working well in terms of China's geostrategic agenda for Canada. Our policies of appeasement to China by not making the officials of the PRC regime accountable for their flouting of the rules-based international order with regard to Hong Kong, or for that matter, the Uyghur genocide or arbitrary detention of Canadians in China, only emboldens the Chinese regime to intensify these assaults against Canadian security and sovereignty. Frankly, as a Canadian of European origin, I feel ashamed at Canada's weakness in response to the grave concerns of Canadians of Hong Kong origin who are urging this committee to implement a much better and stronger immigration and refugee policy towards people at risk in Hong Kong. And that includes our need to abrogate the contract with VFS with the shortest possible delay. Let's face it, Canada endorsed the Sino-British Joint Declaration in Hong Kong at the request of the British and Chinese governments when it was lodged with the United Nations all those years ago. That endorsement has imposed an international obligation on Canada to respond to protect the people of Hong Kong who have been betrayed by the government of China's disavowal of its international commitment to the one country, two systems policy and 50 years of no change when the sovereignty of Hong Kong transferred from Britain to China in 1997. That obligation on Canada did not come with an expiry date. Moreover, Canada's relationship with Hong Kong is extraordinarily profound, with 500,000 Canadians who identify as of Hong Kong origin resident in our country and over 300,000 Canadian citizens living in Hong Kong, our government should take the concerns of our Hong Kong Canadians much more seriously than we have done up to now. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Burton. We will now move on to Mr. Chi Fang. Mr. Chi Fang, you have 5 minutes for your opening remarks.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm Ted Hui, actually Mr. Hui. I'm a former legislator, having served the Hong Kong legislature for the past 4 years. I left Hong Kong and went into exile 2 months ago to continue speaking for Hong Kong's freedom without being forced to jail. Police brutality and political persecutions in Hong Kong are unequivocal and undeniable. I experienced them myself firsthand, tear gassed, pepper sprayed, and pinned down to the ground, prosecuted in court for ridiculous reasons. Under new national security law, Hong Kongers and dissidents' fundamental rights are further compromised as the Hong Kong administration interferes in court proceedings and bail arrangements. It is imminent for many young individuals and family units who are under threat of the Hong Kong CCP regimes to flee from persecutions on humanitarian grounds. I'm grateful that the Canadian government and parliamentarians are already taking stronger stands against human rights violations in Hong Kong. Libel plan schemes are also underway for young protesters who are being persecuted. However, they might as well be quite inadequate and might not launch soon enough for providing a safe haven. I refer to the new open work permits beginning on February the 8th that allows Hong Kongers to work in Canada. Under that scheme, Hong Kongers must have graduated with Canadian post-secondary diploma or degree in the last 5 years, which is very limiting. I take myself as an example. I finished high school and attended university here in Canada 18 years ago. My qualifications would be obsolete for the scheme, even though I'm still considered to be fairly young at my 30s. Many young protesters now urgently need a safe place from Hong Kong are at their 20s and 30s, just like me. They will be barred from the scheme totally, even though having a Canadian qualification. After all, the scheme will be beneficial only to a small amount of those who are already onshore, but not those who are about to go to jail in Hong Kong. I noticed the 2 other pathways to permanent residence for young Hong Kongers, which will be available later this year. I'm also grateful for that. However, they might probably come too late for those who need to flee, as the Hong Kong regime is introducing the Immigration Amendment Bill 2020, under which the Hong Kong administration can ban anyone from boarding any aircraft or a boat or any other means of transportation, and without the need to give any reasons. It means that the Hong Kong regimes will have full power to impose direct exit restrictions on any Hong Kong residents. This piece of law is expected to be passed in our legislature, which is now without any opposition, in 2 or 3 months' time. In the extreme cases, the regime can bar all Hong Kongers who apply for Canadian work visas or permanent residencies from leaving Hong Kong. So time is of essence, and for the pathways for Hong Kongers to be effective, they must be launched fairly soon. So finally, on the point of asylum, I understand that it is on a case-by-case basis, but I urge the Canadian government to go for a lenient approach towards Hong Kong young protesters, give them privileges, consider them convention refugees under international law, as the Sino-British Joint Declarations between the UK and China is breached, and fundamental rights of Hong Kongers are under attack, providing for offshore protection visa routes so that they know that there will be a safe place for them to stay for a longer term before they before they land in Canada. So Hong Kong people have high hopes on the Canadians. So I hope the Canadian government and parliamentarians can join hands with the free world and to fight for freedom and to speak up for freedom for Hong Kong's, be it Magnitsky style sanctions other kinds of economic sanctions. And I'm personally for all the boycotting of international events, sport events, institutional events, or other kinds of boycotting and isolations towards Beijing. And thank you so much for committee members for listening to me and to all my other Hong Kongers. Thank you so much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Thanks for your opening remarks. We will now move to our first round of questioning. We will have one round of questioning for 6 minutes each. We will start with Mr. Jennis. Mr. Jennis, you have 6 minutes for your round of questioning. You can please proceed.
Thank you, Madam Chair. My first question is for Mr. Fung and Professor Burton. It seems to me that the immigration measures that the government has announced sort of oddly create an economic track for what is a problem that's not so much driven by economics, but by a political situation. It's as if we've looked at the situation and said, hey, this is a great opportunity for us to attract university-educated young people from Hong Kong who already have a certain level of capacity, which is great, but we're not targeting in our offer of support people that are politically vulnerable, and we're leaving out people who may not have those qualifications, that economic position, but who have been charged or who are vulnerable to political pressure. So it's like completely the wrong way of thinking about the issue in economics terms as opposed to in political and human rights terms. That's how I see it. I'd love to hear your feedback. Am I correct in my perception? Is there something I'm missing? Do you agree? Do you want to add to that, etc.? Maybe Professor Burton first. Go ahead.
Yes, I quite agree with you. I was looking at video of 82-year-old Martin Lee, a hero of Hong Kong democracy for many decades, walking from a Hong Kong court. Can we not get Mr. Lee here to safety in Canada? He has such a close connection to our country and to the Hong Kong community here. Or the younger people who, at the beginning of their life are facing imprisonment, possible transmission to jail hell in China, comparable to what we know about with Michael Kovrig and Michael's favor. The fact that they don't meet our immigration priorities in terms of the ability to contribute to Canada or their ability to communicate in English or French, I don't think should be the criteria under which we determine whether our Canadian values are compatible with giving refuge to these people who are simply asking for the right to live in a democratic society with the rule of law. Unfortunately, they're endangered in Hong Kong, and I think they would make exemplary new Canadians here in Canada, and I hope we can bring in as many as possible on as flexible criteria as possible, and particularly taking into account their political stance, not their ability to contribute immediately to the Canadian economy.
Thank you. And I would just add that I think a program that focused on human rights defenders, it really does dramatically contribute to the fabric of our country, as long as we don't think in too narrowly economic terms. Mr. Fung, do you want to add to that briefly? And then I've got a question for Mr. Neve as well.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Jennis. I share quite the same view with you, and with the feelings that quite many young protesters are excluded from the existing schemes that Canadian government is providing. So we spoke of Martin Lee, who worked with me continuously over the past 10 years, who would be excluded from these schemes as well. And I also speak for those young protesters who participated in frontline protests, being shot by the police, being tear gas, and personally injured. And those would be excluded also from the schemes only because they are secondary school students, or they have an obsolete or unsuitable qualifications other than Canadian ones. So I believe it's only humanitarians to expand all these schemes and visas routes to include those people who are now not included in the schemes. And I hope the Canadians can really do that to join hands with Hong Kong people.
Thank you. Mr. Neve, you have done extensive work on the issue of threats and intimidation targeting Canadians in Canada who are perhaps recent immigrants, members of diaspora communities involved in human rights issues. This is something that I think maybe we should be concerned about, that people who flee here from Hong Kong would be subject to ongoing violence, threats, intimidation of family members. I put forward Motion 55, which is calling on the government to offer better support to victims of foreign state-backed interference. I wonder if you can share what key takeaways this committee needs to think about in terms of dealing with the safety and security of newcomers once they get here.
I think it's really important to draw that connection. As you note, Amnesty International, on behalf of the Canadian Coalition on Human Rights in China, did extensive research documenting the pattern you're describing, and it's been going on and worsening for many years. And I think there's every reason to be concerned that as new arrivals in Canada who may have very recently been active in opposition activities, are strong human rights defenders in Hong Kong, arrive in Canada, the likelihood that they will be targeted even here in the place of safety is very serious. It's been disappointing to see the failure on the part of the federal government so far, and this goes back many years, to take some concerted action to deal with this concern, not necessarily to solve it. It isn't an easy situation to solve overnight, but there's a lot of concrete measures that need to be taken, and I think the Hong Kong situation highlights how urgent that is.
Just in light of time, I
Mr.
wonder if
Janice,
you
your
can
time is
provide.
up. Your time is up. No,
Madam Chair,
sorry.
Point of order. Then I just want to clarify that witnesses would be able to submit in writing follow-up information, hypothetically perhaps. Some concrete recommendations along these lines. Thank you.
Yes, witnesses can submit, can send in written submissions. Thank you. We will now move on to Mr. Surrey. Mr. Surrey, you have 6 minutes for your round of questions. You can please start.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you for all the witnesses for the work for many years.
Thank you very much for dealing with these challenges. First question.
Have you seen any evidence of people from Hong Kong being deterred from applying to relocate to Canada in light of the recent events? Any specific examples that you think you could share with the committee that we could work on?
Could I answer that?
Okay, go ahead, Mr. Burton.
I think that, the fact that the Hong Kong authorities have been seizing the travel documents of Hong Kong persons who have been subject to police incarceration indicates that they don't want them to be able to leave Hong Kong. It's a very serious issue, and I would hope that our government could make some provision for persons who do not have documentation because they are being held by the Hong Kong authorities to be able to make a passage to Canada.
Okay, thank you. And also, Madam Chair, I'll be sharing my time with Ms. Martinez Federera, so sorry about that. Mr. Awichi, you from your own experience, and you mentioned, have you received feedback from residents of Hong Kong and from your network, from your conversations about the networks of immigration measures that are available to Hong Kongers? Have you expressed concerns with the ability, the safety to live in Canada through some of these immigration streams that we have?
From my exchanges with my fellow Hong Kongers, I would say that a massive number of family units and individuals who participated in frontline protests are very eager to leave the countries to escape from political prosecutions in court. But then, of course, Mr. Burton was right that quite many of them are now are under bail, so they are not able to hold a valid passport to even apply for any visa or pathways, safe haven schemes in Canada. So I agree that it's important for those who are without passport but with other documents proving their identity to be eligible to apply for these schemes. And so I don't expect, and I haven't heard of any difficulties they would expect when studying or working or living in Canada. They are very eager to come.
Okay, thank you. And I'll pass it on to my colleague, Soraya. Merci, thank you.
Madam Martinez Ferrada, you can start. Yeah.
Merci. Oui, merci.
Thank you very much. How much time do I have?
Alors,
Thanks to the witnesses. I'm going to ask two questions right away, and then you'll be able to answer. First of all, for Mr. Neve, the government has, for Hong Kong residents, looking at the trend in current programs, they're trying to strengthen the programs, and this is why this is a good way to react and to encourage immigration. And maybe you could give us your opinion on how you would try and encourage a resettlement. And afterwards, Mr. Burton, perhaps very quickly, you could talk about the government's the program that is a complement to programs that exist with our allies. Would it have been better to try and reproduce similar programs that are offered by our allies?
And certainly, while it's very understandable that there's been an effort to make use of immigration measures as an initial response to this crisis, I think, as already has been noted here, and other witnesses have, that's going to be limited and imperfect, given that this is a refugee situation we're primarily concerned about, and it's not, it's a bit of a square peg in a round hole when we look at that. We all understand the need to be creative here, using immigration measures, using things like temporary residence permits, given that there is that limitation on granting official refugee status while individuals are in Hong Kong. But the immigration measures haven't been tailored in a way that's going to be responsive to the reality of those in greatest need. And we've heard that powerfully with the reference to Martin Lee's case, by also highlighting the situation of young activists. So if we're going to use immigration measures here, there needs to be a real overhaul of the criteria to make sure they're going to be responsive to who needs the protection the greatest.
I think that Canada, with regard to all things in terms of meeting the challenge of China's flouting of the international rules-based order, is lagging behind all of our Five Eyes partners and like-minded nations. And certainly, the British have been reasonably good in reviving the British nationals' overseas passports that provide right of entry to Britain to persons who were in Hong Kong prior to 1997, and extending them now extending them the right of abode in Britain. I know Australia has been much more forthcoming. Family of some of the dissidents, such as Joshua Wong, have recently been able to move to Australia. Frankly, Canada should be receiving more than everybody combined because of the traditional friendship and relationship between Canada and Hong Kong, where such a large proportion
Sorry
of our
for
population...
interrupting, Mr. Burton. Time is up. We'll have to move to our next member. Madame Normandin, you have 6 minutes for your round of questions. You can please proceed.
Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much. Thank you to all the witnesses. My first question is a more general one for all the witnesses, and maybe you can complete what you were not able to finish earlier. I think there's a very broad consensus with regard to measures that the immigration programs are too restrictive, and many of these people are risking imprisonment, and the refugee-related measures are not sufficient because you have to be outside your country of origin before you can ask for refugee status. But I would like to ask your opinions on the international relations aspect. Should we should we try and avoid more cosmetic immigration measures, and should we not try and make more political pressure as a tool?
That immigration measures, of course, can be political pressuring tools, and it can be a gesture as recognitions of the freedom movements for the past years in Hong Kong. But in my view, it's more than that. Now we are talking about humanitarian assistance, and those people are facing personal threats to their personal safety, thrown to jails. I myself were followed by stalkers and intelligence forces for the past 6 years before I went into exile. So imagine that life would be for just normal civilians, for students, young protesters themselves. So I agree that the existing schemes are restrictive and should be more tailor-made to those who are in need. So my answer is that yes, it can be a political gesture, can be a tool, but it should be more on a humanitarian basis.
Peut-être les deux autres témoins aussi. Est-ce qu'on devrait...
And for the other witness, should we add diplomatic pressure, political pressure to the immigration measures?
Well, maybe I'll jump in and say absolutely yes. I mean, clearly the best solution to the Hong Kong refugee crisis is to address the human rights crisis. And if human rights can be restored to Hong Kong, if this rapid erosion in freedom can be curtailed, then people will not need to flee in the first place. And that does take us into the diplomatic realm. Canada's been taking more and more steps over the last couple of years, has spoken out more frequently in the past. But so much more is needed to be done here. It absolutely has to be done on a multilateral basis with a growing number of countries. It was encouraging to see at the General Assembly in the fall, around 37 or 38 countries came together to make a public statement around the Hong Kong situation. We need to get far beyond those numbers. And I think there's a complementarity here. If we were also working together with other governments to do humanitarian work jointly together and making it very clear that the international community, not just Canada, sees a refugee crisis in Hong Kong, that adds to the pressure on China as well.
I would like to see Magnitsky sanctions imposed against those who have been complicit in the disgraceful political persecution of Hong Kong democracy and freedom activists in Hong Kong. There are a lot of officials of the Chinese regime who have considerable assets in Canada, who have family here and wish to enter our country. I think we have to make it clear to the Chinese government it's not business as usual with these people so long as what's going on in Hong Kong is going on. So I very much endorse what both Alex and Ted have said about this.
Merci beaucoup. Ma prochaine question peut-être un peu pour...
Next question. I don't know if you'll have an answer. And with regard to VFS, which is a private company that has a contract with the government, should the Canadian government ask its client to reject any attempt by the Beijing government to obtain information from any requests or filed through them?
Say that we see this over and over again with Chinese regime associated companies that offer very competitive bids to win contracts for things like NUCTEC's installation of security equipment in our embassies, 170 embassies around the world, or the very reasonable and competitive prices of Huawei equipment for telecommunications. And now we see that, someone in the procurement department in Canada got a really good deal on subcontracting of visa processing. All of these things, the reason that those companies are able to benefit from Chinese government subsidy is because the regime expects other benefits in terms of their overall career regime goals. There's no question about this. So, we've already got it clear that Huawei could facilitate espionage and kill switches in telecommunications. We know that NUCTEC would be a disaster to be running our embassy control at the exit. And the VFS is clearly
Sorry for interrupting,
transferring
Mr.
information.
Burton. Mr. Burton, time is up. We will now end our round of questioning with Ms. Kwan. Ms. Kwan, you have 6 minutes for your round of questioning.
Thank you very much to all the witnesses for your presentation. I'd like to first turn to Mr. Huey. You mentioned that the Hong Kong legislature is now contemplating legislation that will bar anyone from boarding a plane or a boat for any reason. The legislation does not stipulate as to why a person would be barred. Is that correct? You're on mute.
Yes. Yeah. Yes, that is correct. The legislation doesn't provide for any reasons that needed to be given by the regimes when it has to exercise its right to impose any restrictions on any individuals. And the Hong Kong Bar Associations and many lawyers has openly expressed that it's very concerning and very troubling, and it might go against our constitutions that says Hong Kong people have right to go in and out of Hong Kong. So now it's completely destroyed, and our fundamental rights totally undermined.
So time is of the essence to actually bring in special immigration measures to help people to get to safety. So aside from the existing measures that are in place, even as people are processing their application, as they're waiting for the application to be processed, they actually need a minister's permit or temporary residence visa to come to Canada. So would you recommend for the government to bring that measure in, such as what they have done when Canada dealt with people in China at the time of Tiananmen Square?
Definitely, and I urge the Canadian government to take a speedy approach and to provide for all different kinds of visas based on humanitarian grounds, so that those who are in need to flee really have the route to leave Hong Kong and safely arrive at Canada, and so they can apply for humanitarian protection visa or asylum later. So time is really of essence. That law is going to be passed in months, so it is very imminent.
The suggestion that from our previous panel is to utilize our consulate offices in Hong Kong to actually provide for people to make application to apply for travel restriction exemptions, as an example, and then also exit visas and passports and so on. Maybe I can turn to Mr. Burton on this. Do you think that that's something that the Canadian government should embark on, to look at measures such as that to allow for the opportunity for people to get into a safer office to access documentation?
Yes, I think so. And, having served as a Canadian diplomat in Beijing in the past, this has been done in rare cases of urgency. And I think the situation in Hong Kong is a case of urgency that requires these kinds of special measures on the part of our consular officials.
In fact, the minister's mandate letter back in 2017 was directed by the Prime Minister to introduce a dedicated refugee stream to provide safe haven for human rights advocates, journalists, and humanitarian workers at risk. So this could be actually, in fact, a measure that could be put in place right now for the people of Hong Kong.
And what more Canadian thing could we be doing in terms of our Canadian values than providing refuge for people who are committed to democracy and human rights and are suffering because of their democratic beliefs?
In the Tiananmen Square period, there was a directive actually from the government of the day to deem that all persons who have in some way individually embarrassed their government or in so doing have exposed themselves to severe sanctions should they return. So this is in reference to Tiananmen Square, to Chinese authorities. Should the Canadian minister, our Minister of Immigration, be issuing that directive to IRCC officials?
I think certainly, the idea that we would send people back to Hong Kong where they could be subject to arrest and possible transmission to China is something that we don't want to do. It was a policy that worked well in 1989, and our policy of minister's permits brought a lot of Chinese activists out to Canada. I personally, having been educated in China, brought some of my friends to our country through minister's permits, and thank God that this was possible.
In terms of actual measures for people, at this moment, with VFS Global having access to or being contracted to do this work and subcontracted to a company that's owned by the Beijing police, what message do you want to say to the Canadian government right now? What action do they need to take immediately?
We need to stop that contract as soon as possible. The idea that subcontracting out cheaper is a good idea for immigration is a false economy. We need to have this based on Canadians protecting the data through Canadian servers in Canadian diplomatic facilities, as opposed to allowing the Beijing police to gather this data for God knows what sort of use.
What would you say to the Canadian government whose standard response will likely be this, that all the safety measures are in place?
Laughable.
Thank you. For those who are in Hong Kong at the moment, private sponsorship in terms of privately sponsored refugee options has been put forward by some Canadians. Is that a consideration that we should be taking in place? Maybe I can go to Mr.
Ms. Kwan, your time is up. Sorry for interrupting. With this, our second panel comes to an end. On behalf of all members, I would like to thank all our witnesses for appearing before the committee today and providing your testimonies. The meeting is now adjourned. Thank you.